So my name is Riana Pfefferkorn, and I am currently a policy fellow at the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI. So most of my work now focuses on AI policy, but I've been at Stanford for about a decade, and a lot of my work over that time has involved both cybersecurity and data privacy and encryption issues, as well as, I haven't done this recently, but I used to do quite a lot of filing in court to try to unseal sealed surveillance matters in order to help the public understand what their government is up to in terms of government surveillance and law enforcement activity. And so when this hit the news, it was really sort of the talk of the town amongst all of my cybersecurity practitioner and scholar communities. And it looked like a good opportunity to brush off some of the old, motions to unseal search warrants like I used to file.
So does this concern you from the work that you do or from as a faculty member or both?
So I'm not a faculty member, I'm a researcher. But it concerns me with like a number of different hats on. One is, this has been a big story amongst the cybersecurity folks that I am on mailing lists, and Slack channels, et cetera. Everybody's talking about this. And it was just so much speculation and wondering and trying to come up with explanations for what might be going on. And I thought like the easiest way to do this, to cut through all of this noise, is just to try and get the government and the court to actually unseal the warrants and the affidavits so that we can find out more. Instead, it feels like we've been relying on this like slow drip of information as this case has been developing over the last few days with this story. I also am concerned, I guess, as somebody who's been working at a university for about a decade now, there have been a lot of attacks on higher education and on universities all over the country. There's been a lot of attacks on even completely legal immigrants, people who have been in this country for a long time, have legal status, especially here where this guy is not accused of having done anything wrong as far as we know. And that adds to the swirl of uncertainty and fear and doubt around this situation, is knowing that this is a time where the administration is very hostile to immigrants and to academia broadly. Some of the reporting on this matter has revived discussion of efforts under the previous Trump administration that seem to be targeting Chinese academics specifically and singling them out for greater scrutiny and even prosecution. And so again, that's just one more thing that's swirling around. Is this just another in that line of cases that we saw earlier? What is going on? And so that was what I wanted to just try and do something to try and shed more light on it.
Riana, your research seems to be much along the lines of the work that Professor Wang does. Have you ever crossed paths with him or looked into some of the work and research that he does?
I wasn't familiar with him or his work prior to this, but I know other folks who work at IU who work on cybersecurity, law and policy, and technical issues. I'm sure they must be very, alarmed by all of this. And I know folks at universities around the country and even outside of the United States who work on these issues who I think are more familiar with him than I was. So while I can't speak to him or his work directly, it's kind of something like this happening to a community where a lot of people do know each other, I think is part of what has caused so many ripples of alarm throughout the cybersecurity community.
And I know you just filed your motion yesterday. Has it gone anywhere yet, sort of in the legal process, or what are you anticipating or expecting, or I guess even hoping for?
I would say my hope would be that this will stimulate the government to go and unseal as much as they can, at least unseal the case, like have asked the court to unseal the case dockets for what I'm assuming are 2 warrants. I don't even know how many warrants there are. Is this one? I'm assuming it's 2, one for each of the homes. And then my hope would be that they will file unsealed versions, even if there need to be redactions to protect some information in there, so that the public can view those. While it's completely standard to have something like this be under seal before a warrant is executed, obviously you don't want to tip off the targets that you're going to come raid their house. It is also entirely routine to publicly file warrants once they have been executed. And so that is what I'm hoping to move that process along here and hope that those will soon be published where everybody can see them, because the courts are a public institution doing the public's business, funded by the public. They executed these searches in public, and so the public has a right to know under both the First Amendment and longstanding common law principles that we have a right to access our courts, and we have a right to know what the government is doing in our names.
It by all accounts, we have a termination letter. It appears that Professor Wang has been terminated. We believe that his wife was also terminated from the university. It happened on the same day as the searches of their homes. We can only assume they're connected. And I'm very curious, and I think you would be too, to know if the investigations involve his work at IU, or would the university be subject to also an FBI search or investigation? I assume you're curious about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to know what is going on here and what was the motivation for a search where they've searched two homes, but there's no allegation that there's any pending arrest or investigation that's going to happen for either of these people. It seems weird that you would fire the wife of somebody just because she happens to be married to somebody else who got terminated. Like, there's just so much going on. And, you know, you were using language like assumption yourself. Nobody knows what's happening. And so my hope is that media organizations like yours will join in trying to bring greater pressure on the government and on the court here to try and shed some more light on this so that we can stop speculating and assuming and gain a better understanding of what's going on.
It's my understanding that Professor Wang is a Chinese immigrant. The termination letter refers to him accepting a job at a university in Singapore. As someone who works and researches cybersecurity, data security, is that cause for alarm for national security to the point where the FBI would jump in and make an investigation?
Well, that's, you know, one of the things that we don't know. We've seen what sure seemed to be the singling out of Chinese academics in the past for investigation and even for prosecution. A lot of those charges ended up getting dropped a couple of years ago. And so there's some concern. I think that this may be the China aspect might be a rationale behind this. But we don't know, like, is this going to turn out to be an espionage case? Is this going to turn out to be just some sort of xenophobic, you know, witch hunt after somebody who just happens to be from a country that we have somewhat tense relations with in the United States? Like, nobody knows for sure what is happening. And so it seems like there are so many different ways that this story could go as we find out more. And it would be very helpful for everybody, I think, to just be able to see the record set straight on what exactly is the motivation for these searches.
What's your motivation for the search beyond your personal interest? Do you feel like you're representing any kind of group, or beyond just as your personal interest?
So, I mean, I'm doing this totally in my personal capacity. You know, this isn't the university or my job doing this through me. This is just me wanting to take action to try and take up the mantle again of public access to court records, greater transparency around the surveillance process, around the law enforcement process, which often can happen too long under seal, even after the need for sealing, the need for secrecy has evaporated, for example, because a search has been executed and completed. And then on top of that, you know, I found it a little surprising when I called up the court to ask, like, how do I actually go about trying to request the unsealing of this? That I talked to 3 different people there, and 2 of them told me I was the first person who had called the court about this matter. I found that very surprising. I don't know if it's true or if it was just those particular individuals I was talking to hadn't had anything, but I thought this would have been a media circus and that there would be nonstop phone calls to the federal court about this matter. And instead, they didn't even recognize the professor's name. Like, when I said it, it was like this was the first that they'd heard of it. And so my hope also is, you know, that other media organizations in Indianapolis and beyond will likewise join in because the press has been a huge factor in bringing greater transparency to sealed search warrants and to shedding light on investigations in order for the public to know better what is going on in their communities. And so having worked with folks who do that kind of work in the past, it just seemed like an opportunity to jump on this. And basically, if nobody else had done it yet, like why not be the one to do it first?
Well, Rihanna, shame on me. Although I will say I did reach out to the U.S. District Attorney's Office, which is where I usually first go on these
Yeah.
matters, and they told me that they could neither confirm or deny that there was an investigation, and that's
But
as
it
far
was
as I got.
It happened in public. Everybody saw it. They said it was
Right,
court authorized. There must be some court involved. So,
right,
but yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Like if you're getting stonewalled by the U.S. Attorney's Office, then the and granted, like this is sort of a weird catch-22 when it comes to sealed matters like this. I'm talking to like one person at the court who's saying, well, what's the case number? And I'm saying, I don't have a case number. That's the whole point. It's sealed. I can't even give you the most basic of information, much less know like where to target a request to try and say, okay, what particular filings have been made in this particular matter? What do I want to move to unseal? So this is the kind of weird dilemma and catch-22 that members of the press and the public often find themselves in trying to open up sealed court records, is that often there's so much secrecy that you don't even know what case number is it? Who's the judge that's assigned to? What's the name of the case? And so all of that is stuff that I'm hoping to at least shed just crack open the door and shed a little bit more light on what is going on here. Because once we at least have case numbers or unsealed docket sheets, for example, that I think will make it a lot easier for the rest of the media to try and say, hey, I want to file a motion to unseal this, this, or this.